Good afternoon again, Powermetrix Nation. Again, I have to try and think into the I'm afternoon here. You guys will see this in the morning though. So I'm actually doing 2 ahead now. So JP and I have got meter schools coming up. So we've had to do this. So I just wanted to first of all, I want to give a couple of shout outs there and some answered prayer and some thanks. A lady that works here at our place, Tish, who's over our HR. Her daughter had some really serious eye surgery, and as a matter of fact, her name is Journey because it was touch and go for a while whether Journey and her mom would make it. We were all praying for them, and so now Journey's ready to start kindergarten here in a couple of days. So it's going to be awesome, and the operations went really well. But for such a little girl, you know, we were all praying for her and everything, and it came out great. And so she's starting kindergarten. And I'm sure she's pretty excited. So thanks for that. And then also we've had some folks we've prayed for on here. One of them, he was with COVID, was supposed to be, his daughter was told to go say goodbye to him. And actually, he's still hanging in there. So it's been crazy, but that's been over a week and a half ago. So we're praying for him as well. So we'll start out with a prayer, and then we'll get into what we're going to try and go over today. And so let's just start it out that way with a good prayer. All right? Thank you so much for what you did with little Journey. She is excited to go to school, and she's such a precious little girl. And her mom is a part of our team and family here, and we really appreciate her and everything she's gone through, and to see how excited she is for her daughter to kindergarten is pretty cool. She just lights up, Lord. And so thank you so much for getting that little girl and her mom through everything they've been through and to this point. And then also we lift up Susie's dad. So hopefully he will continue to improve and get better. And Father, in the midst of all this, we just ask for protection and safety on everybody that we know as part of the Powermetrix family. We know we're not baking cookies out there, so please help everybody get home safe. And more importantly, Father, let us just try and show Christian attitudes out there when we leave the house, and not just talk about it. So we need to love one another, encourage one another, and be supportive of one another out there in this crazy world. So thank you so much for everything you've done for us and will do for us in the future, Lord. So all of these things I ask and say, according to the will of the one who paid it all, my brother, Jesus Christ. Amen. Cool. And I'll have to bring a picture of a little Journey up here next time. So today we're going to do part 3. This will be the last one in the 5S pad mount. Remember, we were behind the church there. We've got a pad mount. We have a 9S was the initial service, and for the sanctuary. Then they built an additional building out there. So they put another 2 CTs in that pad mount to feed that 5S meter. Got now. So they put a 5S in to feed this other building. So they've got this outlier building out there you can see in the video. So that's what's being fed by this 5S. We initially we hooked everything up, and we got ready to test the meter, and we got 132 point something %. So what that means is we obviously had an issue. Okay, so we're trying to go through that stuff in our head. Okay. So we've got the practice here. You can get on there and call us, and we'll love to show you something on these benches, demos you'd like for us to do. Work through a particular meter form you've got, a particular meter test you've got, a particular situation, and say, here's what we've got at this. We're having a little difficulty testing it. Can you go over that with us? Absolutely. So any training that you would like, please holler at us. So remember, we were at that point where we got a 132%, so the Rolodex starts. So you hear me actually ask Jonathan, I go, did you put in 1.2 or 1.8? So because, and I said that in the last video, I've seen it where they've programmed the meters a different K sub T than what it says on that face. So if the numbers come out pretty round and you're thinking, wait a minute now, so you double check on it. And I've had double checked where instead of 1.8, they had programmed the meters 1.2 on transform rated meters or whatever it is, so that the numbers kind of worked out. I asked the question, they checked, and sure enough. So that's one thing. It could possibly be that. It could be a connection issue. right? It could be something that we've got connected incorrectly. One thing you always need to be aware of is the service type that you choose, because you'll notice in there it's very important for one meter form. You can have several different service types. So the number of voltages, the number of currents, and the number of primary currents that you're looking at, it falls into how many CTs you have. All of that is right there on that first page when you're setting up the site. So it gives you your secondary voltage, your secondary currents, also PC, which is your primary current. So how many times have they CT'd the primary? They have 2 CTs. Do they have 3 CTs? Have they tried to save money on CTs and run 2 conductors through 1 CT and only have 2 instead of 3? Taking that and applying that to the actual testing is your choice of your service types on the test equipment. And that's how you line up with what's actually out there in the field, and you don't have some new sensors, okay? So that could possibly be it, all right? And so we're going to go ahead and test that meter. We're going to test the CTs afterwards. So we'll go ahead and get rolling. I'm going to jump in here a few times, but you'll see this is some great training and learning here on this in this one. So watch what happens here and kind of pay close attention.
So here again, we can just double check our vectors, make sure nothing's changed. We've still got plenty of load on it. We've got a little bit more. We're closer to about 6/10, voltage around 215. Power factor looks real good, 0.99. You're happy about that?
Ooh, 0.99, son.
Let's go ahead and go continue.
So as always, we're looking for the large green ball to light up. We'll get a tone, and then start test will pop up. But until it does its checks, you won't see that. But as soon as we get a good pulse here, you'll see start test over here. So you heard the blip, bloop, whatever you want to call it, and when we got that, then we could go start test. And here's where it is going to compare what it measures to what the count and the meter reads that he entered in there on this site. So what he entered in there off of his K sub T, that's saying how many amps it sees every time that pulses. Well, we're going to actually measure voltage times current times power factor and get those watts, and we're going to divide by that number, and we're going to say, well, actually what we measured, we should see, let's say 2.999 pulses, whereas we counted 3. The comparison of those numbers is a true customer load test, because it's taking into account what's going on here. The voltage times the current times the power factor is real load. It's not a phantom load. Did you put in 1.2 or 1.8? Did you? Okay, great training opportunity here. So you noticed a second ago when we ran the registration test, we got 132%. So we know that's not right. So now we've talked about that in all the webinars we've done in Knoxville with the benches. Then you get this Rolodex going in your head. What could it possibly be? I've had situations where it might have said one thing on that faceplate of what you see right here. It says 1.2, but I've actually had the utility has programmed them for different K sub T's. You know, so it wasn't 1.8, it was 1.2, or vice versa. So you do the math in your head, and if you did the math in your head, 1.2 versus 1.8, that's a third off, right? So you're sitting there going, well, wait a minute, that could be the problem. It could be the K sub T. But we also noticed another thing, which then Jonathan evaluated and said, well, wait a minute, I've got 2 voltages here. The selection that he had of choosing a 5S single phase 3-wire setup, which is this single phase, the only option he had showed 1 voltage. So what happened was he went to a 3-wire network, and we went to the network option on here. Then when he went to that and chose the network, he had 2 voltages and 2 currents, which is what we actually have here, right? Because we've got 2 alligator clips. We're on A and B. We're also A and B here with our current. So we've got 2 voltages, 2 currents. So he had to go to the network option to get that, because when he was in single phase 3-wire, he didn't have that option. He only had 1 voltage. So when he changed it to that, we're going to run the test again. You'll see that it came in. So remember, when you see something that's off, you start going through these Rolodex, this mental Rolodex. You say, what could be the problem? Well, there were 2 in my Rolodex. I had 2 problems. It could either be how they had programmed this meter, and then it could be how, is it the choice on the number of voltages and currents, and that's what you deal with a lot with 5S's. That's why you either love them or hate them, okay? When you have to try and test a lot of them, you hate them. For training purposes, you love them because it gets to show you a lot of stuff, okay? But what we did was we asked and said, hey, what is this programmed at? So option A, which was it being programmed, we were told, nope, it is 1.2. So then we went to the second option and we looked and we said, okay, we need to, somehow on here we have to get to 2 voltages. So he switched and he's actually testing this now as a 3-wire network, okay? So we can go ahead and run the test. And when we make that choice, you'll see now that we're going to get a number we like a lot better than 132. So while we were going through that, we didn't want to just sit there while we were trying to troubleshoot it, but afterwards we wanted to go through it with you. Plus we didn't want you to hear all the cussing and stuff. Just kidding. We didn't do that. But, so you have that mental Rolodex that you go through in your head. It would be the same thing as, why aren't I getting any pulses? And we said, well, you can even check your connection right here at the kit. Maybe something's gotten loose there. Or maybe it doesn't emit pulses out of here. It's somewhere on the faceplate, right? Or in the case of a Landis and Gear, I haven't opened up one of my voltages yet and got the pulses to start up. Well, this is the same thing on this. When I saw my number was off on my percent registration, then I start kicking into what could possibly be the problem, okay? And experience helps a lot. So since I've had that happen with the programming of the K sub T on the meter, that was option A for me. And because the numbers worked out, right, a third off. So I said, okay, well, maybe that's what it is. And then when we asked and they said, no, it is 1.2, then we went to B, which is, let's look at our service types again, because with 5S's, that's one of the things you got to really watch, right?
Right.
Right. Cool. We like that number a lot better. So do you have, are you set for 30 seconds and 3 revs or just 3 revs?
I believe it's just 3 revs.
Cool.
Sadly.
That's all right. So remember, if you put a time and a number of revs in there for your customer load test, it's whichever it sees first, it will complete the test. So if it runs through the 30 seconds, but it's only got 2 revs, it will still complete the test. But Jonathan left it 0 and 3 revs, so now it's going to go through the 3 revs. And I even have some people out there across the country, they really do it on a time. So they'll say, no, I want to run 120 seconds. I don't care. So I put 120 seconds in and I put 0 revs. It's going to go through 120 seconds, and however many pulses you get through that, that's what it's going to use to complete the test. So in this case, we're at 0 time, 3 revs, so it will run through 3 revs to complete the test. So while it's running it, it says test in progress in red, and when it completes it, it will say test complete in black once it gets that 3rd pulse or rev. There we go, and it also gives you a nice musical tone. I had nothing to do with that. So you'll see here, test complete in black. So now we run through there, 100.069. We can live with that all day long, okay? So the utility company is getting a tiny, tiny bit extra, okay? Remember, if it's below 100, if it's 90 something, they're losing a tiny bit. We always hopefully want it to be a tiny bit. If it's over 100, they're getting a little tiny bit extra. So in this case, that's definitely within our parameter to say that's a good test. So now we move on to the CTs, right? Right. Cool. always going to show you the color diagram. Now show. I'm trying to see that right there. Wait till I get my big stupid finger out of the way.
Hold on.
It's a big finger. Boom. There it is. Okay, remember what we've been talking about here, right? See up at the top, now it's a 3-wire network, 2 voltages, 2 currents, transformer rated. So this is exactly what we're talking about on choosing the correct service type. So here is where he actually chose now a 3-wire network to give him the 2 voltages and the 2 currents. Okay, you got to match up what you match up, because remember when we looked at that test switch, what did we see on the test switch? We saw we had we were wired up on voltages. We on one end of the test switch and the other end of the test switch we were hooked up on 2 voltages. We were hooked up on 2 sets of currents, right? 2 voltages and 2 currents. So you see it from the test switch, you see it in here, and all of this stuff's got to line up for it to test correctly, all right? So you got to make the right choices, and this absolutely comes way more to bear on 5S's than any of the other forms, okay? On your primary connections, where you need to be on your primary. We like that. We get the green pass. Whenever we get the green pass, we like it. And because Jonathan correctly checked the box on it, it's showing us a nameplate of 200. Remember, if he had not checked the double wrap box, it will be showing us that they're 400s. Okay, so in this case, because he checked the double wrap box correctly, it's showing 197 here, 196 there, but it's giving us a nameplate ratio of 200:5, which is correct off of what our eyes, remember, 2 best tools here and here, are showing us there inside that cabinet, inside that transformer pad and cabinet, we saw 200 on the side of the CTs, so everything matches up. So we look like we got a good test here. So this site, you would say, it allowed us to flex our mental muscles a little bit and figure that out on the 132. So we got that figured out, and once we did that, everything checked out great. So we've got a good test on the meter and a good test on these CTs. So we would say this is a good one, and we can go on to the next one. So we got to use a few things here, right? I mean, there were several little extra tools in there in this one that you saw. All the way from just making sure you keep that door propped open. I know it sounds silly, but I can attest to you, I've been in places before, that wind is screaming enough on one of those doors, it will slam that dude and it will mess up one of those cables. Okay, so from propping the door open to looking at how, if you haven't grabbed an extra on your primary with your flex CTs, okay, if you get in there and grab something extra, when you toggle over to the primary, you're going to see the primary amps now, right? You're going to see the primary current. So if you look up and you know the ratios, I know 200:5, right? And I've got a half an amp. If I've got a half amp on my secondary, so that's a tenth, then I should have a tenth of the 200, so I should have around 20 amps. And if I look down there and I got 40, and if I toggle to the primary and I see 40 or 40 something, I go, oh, no, wait a minute, I got them double wrapped, so I'm cool with that. But if I see 70 or 80 or something like that, not good. And if they're not double wrapped and I see it a lot higher, then that's not good. I probably have grabbed something extra. So we got that one going. The service types, how important that is on selecting the correct service type. We needed to have currents in this situation, so we had to go to the network selection for the service types. And once we collected service and we selected the 3-wire network service, then under the service type you had the selection of 2 voltages and 2 currents, which is what we had. Because remember, at the test switch we had a voltage connection, right? We had the voltage wired, we had a shunt and a return, then we had a voltage and a shunt and a return on the other end of the test switch. So we had 2 voltages and 2 currents. Okay, so once we made that correction, then that took care of that 132. But it also could be where they've wired somebody, programmed somebody's CT differently. Golly. Program the meter differently. If you program the meter differently, and I've had this happen to me, I asked the question, and when they checked in, sure enough, they had programmed it to a different case of T. So instead of 1.8, it was 1.2, so or whatever. And so then you kind of, you look at the numbers, you see it's about a third off. Where are you at? Are you at 1.2, 1.8? And you can ask that question. Or it could be something like this. It could be the incorrect service types chosen. So, but once you line everything up, then it all points towards the service. Then again, because first I always default to John first. So we learned a lot through this site. Any questions? Holler in. Send them in to JP, and we'll get ready for August 24th, which is to be determined. I will say this: we love to know what all we have left. We got 3s, 4s, nice. Anyway, we've got.
I'll send an email.
Yeah, send an email out. Anyway, so JP's going to send an email out that's going to have the list of the ones that are left, and send in some votes, and whatever you guys vote on, that's where we'll go when I get back, all right? So, again, please be safe traveling to and from the meter schools, and if you're going to them, I'll see you there. God bless, safe travels, and be careful out there.